So let's pull up this instructions file once more, and let's see what we can move on to the next challenge problem. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and I see two more challenge problems. Let's take a look now at number 3, and this is spot on. This is exactly the kind of thing that we work on for our Rackspace customers every day. So it appears like we have some type of website rendering problem, and I want to see what that actually looks like. I want to try to experience this problem before I start diving in to investigate. And there's a couple of ways. You may notice, like I said, I'm on a console here, so I do not have a graphical web browser I can bring up. However, it doesn't mean I don't have any web browser at all. For example, I have a couple of really good ones. Here's one called Lynx. And let's use Lynx to connect to our own localhost web service here and see what's going on. Okay. So this is the rendering of HTML into plain text, and it is not what I expected. So if you read the problem description, it was saying that I should see the word success, but I do not see the word success. Instead, I see basically a file listing, an index of the contents of the document root. Okay, so that's not what I want. I need to figure out what's going on here. So I'm going to quit out of Lynx. And now let's investigate what's going on. Okay, you may suspect a number of things, and we can start without making any assumptions at all. It's good to start from a clean slate. And so I'm just going to make sure, since we were talking about netstat earlier, I'm going to confirm that on port 80 we do in fact have HTTPD listening. Okay, so very good. Apache is listening, and so I'm going to investigate now the Apache configuration. And this is a standard Red Hat installation, nothing customized really. So I'm going to find it in its normal location here, etc HTTPD. Okay, and let's go all the way to the subdirectory called /conf. I'm going to read through the main or primary configuration file here, and that would be simply httpd.conf. Okay, and all I'm really looking for is to confirm the document root. Okay, and as I suspected, nothing has been changed. This is the default. The document root, of course, as you know, is /var/www/html. So I'm going to go over there and look and see what I find. Okay, so here I am. Whoa. In /var www HTML, and there in fact is an index.php file, and this is intended to be the content of my website, but again, that wasn't happening. Let's see, whoops, try that one more time. There we go. Let's see the contents of my PHP index file. Okay, so it's called to the print command, and it's or the print function call, I guess you would say. It's supposed to just print out the word success followed by a new line, but obviously that wasn't happening. Okay, so it seemed like, in fact, Apache was not even treating this as something to be interpreted. Instead, Apache was simply treating this as a plain text file to be listed. So let's see if we can fix that. Now, if you're familiar with the standard Red Hat layout for Apache configuration, and especially adding on extra interpreters like mod Perl, mod Python, mod PHP, and so forth, they will all end up in this location. And that's where I'm going to go take a look right now, etc httpd/conf.d. Okay, take a look at what things may have been changed here. And right away, I notice a couple of features that are supposed to be included, but it looks like they've been disabled. First of all, welcome.conf has been disabled, as well as php.conf has been disabled. And the way this works, the contents of this directory, any files in here will be included in the configuration if and only if they end in the extension .conf. So something ending in any other extension, such as .disabled, obviously that's not going to work. And you can tell the reason why this is very important and why it's vital and why it's not working because it's been disabled. If you look at the contents of this php.conf, you'll notice, well, okay, that scrolled through a little bit too fast. But if we read through it, basically, you'll notice this is responsible for loading the actual module that interprets PHP files and then associating an index.php file as being an appropriate default page for a site, and so forth. So maybe if I would undisable this, so to speak, that should get everything to work. So let's give that a try. I'm simply going to rename this now to take off the wrong extension, so it will now end in the correct extension. And then I'm going to restart Apache and see if this solves our problem. Okay, so Apache's restarted now. There's a couple of ways we can check our own localhost. Again, I could go back to using Lynx as I did before. So Lynx is running. You can see the little OK line down there at the bottom. However, I don't see any actual content at all. Okay, so that's kind of curious. I wonder what's going on there. Let me quit out of Lynx and see if I can get maybe a different sort of view. Okay, how about something as simple as curl? Okay, curl, is a great way to pull in a web page from the command line. And so here's curl of localhost. Now it did not return an error, it just returned basically nothing. Okay, let's get a little bit more interesting view of the same thing. Maybe we can get more information about this situation. I'm going to include a very handy flag, command line flag for curl. That's a -I. That is to include the headers, which are part of the response from the web server. Okay, so here's the headers. Now it says I got a response code of 200, which indicates okay. That means that, at least as far as the server is concerned, it's working correctly. There's simply just no content in this output. So this is a bit of a head scratcher, trying to wonder what might be going on here. And really, when you get down to this point, there's nothing left to do but just to check the error logs. And so that's exactly what I'll do now. I'm going to take a look at the last few lines in the error log. And of course, that would be stored under /var/log/httpd, and the file in my case is simply error log. That's the current error log. I'm going to take a look at the last few lines there. Okay. Now again, they wrap around the screen a little bit, but let's see if we can zoom in or at least focus our attention on the last few that might be going on here. Okay, so you can see these last 3 lines. I'm going to do the same thing and only isolate for you just the last 3 lines by appending a dash with the number of lines that I want to see here, because these are the ones that contain the problem. So let me space this out a little bit just so it's more visually distinctive. Okay, so here are the last 3 lines of my error log, and this is describing the problem. You can see all of these occurred at the same second, the same time all the way down to the second, so they're related to the same request. And the very first line there now is telling me exactly what's going on. It's a warning coming from PHP, and it's referring to a variable called open_basedir, which can restrict where or which location PHP files are allowed to be interpreted from for my website. And it says that my index file, or at least what I want to be my index file, var www.html index.php, is not within the allowed paths. And then it shows me what is the allowed path, and that is /srv. Okay, so that doesn't recognize what I'm trying to do. Well, let's see, where does it set the value of this variable open_basedir? Okay, well, it turns out that is not specific to Apache configuration. Actually, that's specific to PHP configuration. And in fact, I'm going to find and fix this problem in simply the file /etc/php.ini. And if you pull this up and take a look for the value of open_basedir, okay, you see that this has been set to the value of /srv. Now, /srv is an interesting directory. On a default installation, it starts off empty, and it's intended to be used to store content for various different services, although quite frequently we don't use it that way. And you can tell if you read the comment that describes this variable open_basedir, it says if it is set, it will limit file operations. And so the implication is that it actually does not have to be set at all. And so the problem here is that this has been set to a value that limits us to something that we can't use in our normal setup for our normal document route for our Apache website. So in fact, I'm going to take my same technique that I've been using in all the configuration files I've looked at. I'm simply going to comment out the original value here, and both the hash mark as well as the semicolon works as a comment character for this file. And then I'm going to leave the commented out value, which is the wrong value, and I'm going to leave the uncommented value here being blank or unset. Okay, so let's give that one a try. I'm going to save this file and see if this works. Now, we're using the PHP interpreter that's built into Apache as a module, and so I'm going to restart HTTPD to actually only for the side effect of the fact that it restarts the PHP module interpreter mod PHP. Okay, so let's try this one more time now. See if we can curl localhost and see what comes up. Ah. Success! Wow, finally, okay, now it worked. Okay, so that in fact was the problem. It was a 2-step problem. The first step was that in Apache was not even loading the support for the mod PHP interpreter. And the second step is that PHP itself was looking in the wrong location for files that it could interpret for us. So now that both steps have been corrected, now both steps work, and so that was the solution to problem number 3.